Welcome back. 8 years ago tonight, riots overtook Ferguson, Missouri. The violence brought Black Lives Matter to the forefront of the American conversation. That was 2014. A few days ago, we did a segment on the 8-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death. He's the man police killed while trying to grab an officer's weapon. The hands up, don't shoot narrative started, and the riots began the next night. We asked you on social media if things in America were better 8 years later and got an overwhelming response. Howard Jackson wrote, America's having conversations about race they never had before. That makes some people uncomfortable. That's good. Pamela Sund, after the Michael Brown episode, race relations are worse. Gallup polling actually shows that. The hands up, don't shoot lie was the genesis of media narrative to control public's view of police actions. Antifa and BLM are nefarious organizations used to stir up hate and division. Ashley Burkell writes, things are definitely not better, unfortunately. Everyone has become uber sensitive about everything. What we say, how we feel, a shame, really. Civil rights attorney Robert Padillo is with us. I guess we can all universally agree that it's sort of a shame how the past 8 years have played out.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I think the biggest issue is that what should have been a broad-based national conversation, something that brought us together, where we can simply agree on the simple humanity of all people within our communities, has somehow become a political wedge that's used to drive people apart. Was it the same people who are outraged by President Trump's house being searched this week had that same level of outrage when young African-American men were killed by police officers, and would work the same way when you have Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about defund the FBI. Well, let's say we need to have a broad-based criminal justice reform platform for the entire country. Why can we just not come together on those things?
I think what's interesting is that the Michael Brown case turned out not to be the case, right? We can all agree on that. The George Floyd case turned out to be the case. What is the lesson to be learned that there were a lot of conservatives? I remember even Sean Hannity, when I worked at Fox, talking pretty strongly about the officers involved in the George Floyd case. But when the riots begin the night of someone dying and there's no chance for the discussion you have, you rightly say we should have, how do we go from there?
Well, part of it is the recalcitrance of the American political system to actual direct action. If you go all the way back to Trayvon Martin over a decade ago, Michael Brown, George Floyd, we have a decade of these cases being handled on a one-by-one basis. What we need is broad-based federal legislation so that people can have confidence in the criminal justice system, so that people believe that you have to have that you're going to have a fair trial and a fair opportunity to be heard, and all those wonderful things that we talk about in our Declaration of Independence and in those nice law books. I think once you have broad-based federal legislation, then you take away the incentive for people and bad actors to do things like riot or tear up property. They will have some actual trust in the system.
We can all agree, though, that the bad actors are going to use whatever excuse they want, I guess, or that is available to them. I'm interested, though, in sort of what's happened in America, right, on the flip side of this. Murders have gone up by double digits since 2014. Young black men are now more likely to be murdered than any other cause of death. Violent crimes in America way back up after having crashed. And race relations now are at an all-time low since Gallup started keeping track in 2001.
Well, I think a big part of it is the rise of information siloing and social media, quite frankly. That people have the opportunity to choose their own reality now. You can live within that reality. So things that used to be neighborhood disputes turn into broad-based civil wars in communities. There was a rapper a few weeks ago who posted on his Instagram, anybody who wants to fight me, show up at my house, I'll be there in 5 minutes. He was murdered 5 minutes later. So when you're seeing this type of thing proliferate, that also metastasizes itself throughout the community, where you're seeing people who claim that any efforts at broad-based police reform are quote unquote defunding the police, and then on the other side of the aisle saying that police officers are all evil, all terrible, all Derek Chauvin, and because of that you end up with a very extreme rhetoric instead of coming together on some actual public policy that can get things done. I think we all can agree policing can be done better in this country. It's just a question of getting the political coalition needed to pass that into law.
You make a great point of information siloing. And look, what we're doing here tends to be an experiment, and we're glad you participate in it, of making sure that in an hour-long show, people hear information that they don't necessarily agree with or really want to hear, and that's not true on every cable news network.
No, you're absolutely correct. Real life should not be pick your own adventure. There are people who are able to simply wake up in the morning, live an entire news cycle that is separate and different from the one that we live in, where up isn't up, down isn't down, and there's no way to build a cohesive society. And I think we have to start uniting on these things.
Yeah, cohesive society is an important point that you just made. Hey, Robert, we got to run. It's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.